So we're staying in the Copper Ridge Lookout. Me and my friend Megan. I slept there. She slept there. It's freezing. It's like 40 degrees, and yesterday was beautiful and sunny, and today it has been cloudy.
Hey everybody, if you're watching, all 100 of you, about 5 years ago I made a video that now has 11,000 views, which I don't know how that happened because it feels like a lot to me, even though it's not a lot. But about the day in the life of a park ranger. At the time, I hadn't really seen any videos like that online. I actually haven't looked recently if there are, but I was just reading. There were so many comments of people asking questions, and I wish years ago I would have responded. But now I'm thinking better late than never, because I still love talking about my time as a ranger because it was just like one of the best jobs that I've ever had. So I made a list of things to chat about quickly. I don't want this to be too long because it's just going to be me talking. I might try and add some pictures and videos in from my time working, but I wanted to be helpful because somebody just commented 6 months ago. So hopefully, if I upload this, you guys will get a notification, or maybe I can respond to some of your comments. But also, if anyone knows me personally, like outside of YouTube in real life, just don't watch this video. It's already kind of weird, me talking to a camera. But yeah, so I'm not a ranger anymore, and I did it for 3 seasons, kind of four. I did like an internship and stuff. Okay, so to start, all the jobs are posted on usajobs.gov. Unfortunately, because it's like a government website, after a certain period of time, I don't know how long it is, a year or two, if your account is inactive, they just delete everything. So I have nothing saved on there, or I would have showed you. But every time I applied to a job, I would always look for like a ranger job that had a GS4 or a GS3. That's like a good entry level position. People who have been park rangers for years, or who are permanent park rangers or law enforcement officers, they can work their way up to 7, 8, 9. It's just a level that the government uses. So start with 3 or 4, and then and you can see the different levels of pay and stuff on there. But every time I applied to a job, I would always add my resume, a letter of recommendation. I got my previous boss to like write me a letter, very broad, not like why she wants to work at this park in specific, but just why she wants to be a park ranger. And then like I would always write a letter of interest. So even though I was applying to 20 different parks every summer or every fall for the next summer, I would make this very broad letter of interest so that every time I went to apply to a job, I would just change why I want to work at that national park, just like change a little blurb. And if they had the hiring manager's name on there, I would try to write like dear so and so, or if I didn't know their name, I would write dear hiring manager, just to make it like a little more personable and show that like why I want to work here. So if you haven't made an account on usajobs.gov, that's the place to do it. Again, this is like many years ago. So now with our current administration and like a lot of rangers losing their job and stuff, I don't know how easy it is to become a park ranger. It wasn't easy back then, but all the steps, if things have changed, you'll just have to look on usajobs.gov. So somebody asked how I got into this, and I got a degree in environmental science. In college, when I started, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I actually put my major down as French, and then I quickly changed it to geology and environmental science with hopes to be a park ranger. I don't know how I got on that path when I was like 18, but I think because I watched Into the Wild and Christopher McCandless, like it just really inspired me. I didn't want to do that and end up dead, but I loved the idea of like being outside for a lot of your life. So, um, when I was in my senior year, my geology professor and like my mentor, she told me about the Student Conservation Association, SCA, and I applied to one of their internships to do right when I got out of college. It was a 5 month internship in Alaska on a traveling trail crew. So there was a group of students, and we worked with the National Park Service, and we would like kind of shadow and follow a crew around, and they taught us how to build a trail. So over the 5 months, we worked 8 days on, 6 days off, lived out of a trailer, And well, we camped, but all of our stuff was in a trailer, all our tools. And we learned, I mean, I got like my S212 chainsaw certification. I learned how to build a bridge, like just all the things you could think of. And I had never done anything like that. So that was really helpful. Though I knew that I still wanted to be a park ranger, but I knew that I did not want to be on a trail crew. That is very tough, gritty work. So if that is something you love, digging holes all day or standing in knee deep mud or being out in the bugs, like that's for you. Or if you want to cut down trees, or it's a really rewarding work, because then maybe during the summer you're working on one trail the whole time, and at the end you get to see your work. Or if you work with horses in another job, or you own a horse or something, you get to work with stock donkeys or horses. So that could be something for you. But I knew that I wanted to be an interpretive ranger or a wilderness ranger. But the SCA was a way for me to get my foot in the door, which I'm super grateful for that summer, because I met some amazing people I'm still friends with today. And I think that is how I got my first job, because on my resume, all I had was school and, like my first job at 15, where I was a barista and a gymnastics coach. So just having the SCA on there, and then my environmental degree, which I don't think you need to have a degree to like show that you want to be a park ranger. Anybody from any walk of life, if you enjoy being outdoors and are willing to put some hard work in, you can bring something to the table. So that's how I think I got the job.
That looks really nice. Nice, cool nap. Sorry to bug you.
Okay, let's see. Somebody asked the pros and the cons. Well, the obvious pros is that you are outside every single day. And if you think some people travel, save money and take time off of work just to be able to visit national parks, and you get to live in one, and you get to have free range of the park on your off days. And that was just, to me, was like, yes, instant, like that is the reason I want to do this job. So you're outside every day, which can be good or bad, rain or shine, buggy, not buggy, wildfire smoke or not, you're outside. So that is the biggest thing. And by the end of summer, I just felt, I don't know, I was trying to think of a term, but like a park genius. I felt like I knew this place like the back of my hand. I could read a map upside down, explaining it to people, would help people plan their backpacking trips or their, front country camping trips. So you just get to learn this part of the world really, really well. And you get to see so much of it yourself. So whether you are an interpretive ranger working at a visitor center, or sometimes they call them visitor use assistants, those are people who work maybe at the entrance booths, or they're campground host. You, on your off days, you still get to see a lot of the park. So I worked 8 days on, 6 days off. Some places work different schedules, but that's what I always worked. You worked 8 10-hour days, and then you had 6 days off in a row. So on those 6 days off, I got to, don't mind my dog, he's just scratching. On those 6 days off, I got to go and do whatever I wanted. I got to hike, or maybe I met other rangers and they were going to go, pack rafting. Yeti. Don't mind him. I got to go pack rafting or climbing. Like, there were so many things you could do, and I loved that. When I was a wilderness ranger, I could write myself a permit. I would, of course, check if there was permits available. Write myself a permit, and I would just leave the office and go outside. And that was just, like, mind-blowing to me that I could just do that. Because there's people who plan their whole year around this one trip in the summer, and you get to just do that every day. So that's... yeah, pretty much the best part is that you're just outside seeing beautiful places every single day.
If you want to know what my view was like while I was doing that handstand, it was like this. Pretty cool.
Some cons, though. So the biggest one, and the reason that I stopped working, is that you are gone for weeks at a time, maybe months, maybe just days, depending on how far you live. But most, if you think about it, most national parks and national forests, depending on who you work for, they're in remote areas, right? They're not really big. They're not really close to big cities. So if you have a boyfriend, a husband, a wife, a partner and they're working out there, or you have a family, just think about, you're going to leave for the summer. It's about May to September. And when I worked 8 days on, not only was I gone for 8 days, I was out of service. I was hiking for 10 hours of that day, or I was gone on a 3-day backpacking trip. So it was really tolling on my partner after, many summers of doing this, that we agreed, and we just came to the term that I had an amazing 4 years, but it was time for me to find a new job. So that is the biggest thing to think about, especially if you have kids or something. So unless you're able to live really close to a national park and your partner is able to keep their job, because the salary isn't great, you just make an hourly wage as a seasonal employee. So just a big thing to think about. Okay, I also wrote down a con or a pro, I don't know. You need to be okay with being uncomfortable, especially there's some things you can come across, or maybe you're not, you really want to be a park ranger, but you don't do a ton of outdoor activities right now. At the North Cascades, we did one mentor hike. So in my beginning of the season, I would go out with a more senior ranger, and they would show me how to do a patrol, what I'm tallying in my notebook, what I'm looking for, how to talk on the radio, how to disperse an illegal campfire ring, what to do if I come across people who don't have a permit. So there's lots to remember, but then after that, it's just you. So, which is not a big deal if you're just going on a day hike, but if you're going out for 2-3 days alone, you got to be okay with camping alone and maybe coming across something you don't really know what to do. Maybe somebody's injured. So you just got to be okay with camping alone, sleeping alone, and hearing all the noises of outside. And so if you're not a park ranger now and you want to be, but you don't do a lot of hiking or you don't do a lot of solo camping, that's going to be a big thing you're going to need to overcome. With that said, though, you don't have to be a wilderness ranger, right? You could be an interpretive ranger, one that works in the visitor center. That's what I did my first season, and then the next season I was a wilderness ranger. And sure, some nights I still felt a little spooked out if I heard a weird noise, but I would just shine my flashlight out there, and turns out it was a mouse or something, but you just make it up to be something way bigger. So just, you need to be okay with being uncomfortable in some situations, and not only hiking alone, but you do have to do some weird stuff. On my second day ever as a ranger, I helped carry out a dead body. Somebody who had passed away while hiking, and they slipped and fell 3,000 feet. And so we had to help search and rescue, carry them all the way back to the trailhead, which was a long way. So you have to be okay with that. You never know what you could be asked to do. We help out with a lot of search and rescues. We're not the ones doing it, but we'll help hike the area, calling out and looking for these people, while the law enforcement rangers are kind of the ones running the show. You also got to be okay with carrying extra weight, or just, big packs, because you also carry all the garbage that people leave out there. If you're on a patrol and you find, I found a whole tub of protein powder, and I had to carry that out for 6 miles. So you just got to be okay with you being fit. You got to be pretty fit, and by the end of summer you will be, but in the beginning of summer you got to maybe do some training to get ready for the season. And where I worked, you had to do a lot of poop scooping. So if you found human waste that was not in the toilet, or once you got to the pit toilet, if it was overflowing, you might have to actually use your shovel and make it all flat, because where we worked, when they were full, they were flown out by a helicopter, because this was up in the Alpines. So it's pretty gross, some of the stuff. And if there's garbage in the poop, you got to take it out and you have to hike it out. So it's just a lot of gritty work, but it's super fun and rewarding, because then when you're done, you just get to go to your camp and you just watch the sunset over a beautiful mountain, and
then you learn how much toilet paper people use. Ah!
Okay, those were the cons, kind of. Some random bonus stuff I have was that if you're able to do an internship, either with the SCA, or I also on every other Sunday volunteered at a national historical park, which those are all over the world, or all over the US if you don't know, and they're not often in remote places. Maybe it's just a small little marker in a city. So I was able to just volunteer there, which I got 100 or so hours, which helped me on my resume. I also wrote down like having some type of certifications, not that they really require it, but I realized after my first season that if I'm outside alone and I get hurt or I come across someone who's hurt, I want to know somewhat what to do other than just like radio for help. So I took a wilderness first aid class and then I took a wilderness first responder class, which it was just nice going outside knowing that, okay, I might know, how to stop some bleeding or how to help a twisted ankle, something like that. Okay, I also wrote down apply where you want to work. So if you have nothing holding you back, maybe you're fresh out of college and you can work wherever you want, apply to any national park, anyone that sounds interesting to you. If you've always wanted to work at the Everglades or Mount Rainier or Pinnacles, like wherever you want to work, that's where you apply. And then you'll see all the different, on usajobs.gov, you'll see all the different jobs available. Like I said, if it's your first time, you're going to want to apply to GS3 or GS4. Other ones will start to have like different, years of experience or certification and stuff. And I just applied to any park that sounded fun. But know that if you apply to Mount Rainier National Park and you really want to work at Paradise, one of the most popular parts of the park, you might not get placed there. You might get placed at like Longmire, a smaller one. So just know that, or if you apply to Grand Teton, maybe you're not going to be right outside of Jackson. So just know that you're not going to always get the exact spot you want. Let's see. Somebody asked what was it like being a female? Honestly, there's a lot of women who work. My boss at North Cascades was a woman, which was super cool. And I don't know, it's never really something that I've thought about. You just got to be okay with getting dirty and doing hard work and putting in lots of effort to hike and like carry heavy packs. But well, I guess the one thing maybe that they were wondering too is like if I ever felt uncomfortable. So where I worked, park rangers, if you did an overnight backpacking trip or multiple days, we kind of camped in areas that had a hidden camp. We didn't usually camp with the general public, just so then it was like another safety factor. That's what I took it as. That there are people maybe a quarter mile away, but they don't know where you are. So if you're alone, it's if you saw people hiking earlier, and they know you're out there, they don't know where you're sleeping so other rangers know and like your dispatch knows. But so that was, I don't know, I never felt weirded out or creeped out by anyone. I think most people who are spending time outside are like-minded cool people. Last thing was day in the life. So you kind of watch my old video. That's really what I did for like many years, and sometimes things would change. But when I was a wilderness ranger, so then that video I worked for the U.S. Forest Service, but then the last 2 seasons I worked with the Park Service, which is a different branch of government. But yeah, I kind of did the same thing. I would go to the ranger station in the morning and I can look at my calendar, my schedule, which they had like ready months in ahead. And I could see that, okay, on day 1 of my 8-day set, I'm in the office where I'll be answering phone calls, answering emails, writing permits, doing face-to-face, with the public and teaching them about the park and helping them plan trips, cleaning out bear cans that we rented out. And then maybe I see the next day that I'm going on a 3-day trip, 2 nights, 3 days. So that night, before I left work, I would go into like our ranger cache and get anything I needed. You can have a lot of your own gear, but if you don't have like a single person tent or something, then you could borrow it from them. So I did that. And then I would go out for my 3 days, make sure I had batteries for my radio and my SOS device, and check in and out with like my boss and stuff, get one of the department vehicles and drive it to the trailhead. And then on those 3 days, I would usually like plan a route. Maybe I'm going to hike a loop, maybe I'm going to go in and out, or like an out and back trip. But I was just making public contact, making sure people had permits, making sure, there's no dogs on the trail, cleaning up any garbage. If I came across any illegal campfires, or like campfire rings, then definitely disperse them depending on where they were. And, I would always check all the toilets, make sure they weren't overflowing. And yeah, or if there's any bridges out, I would write down trail conditions. If there was like a bridge that was out, I could then come back and tell the trail crew that, hey, this bridge at this mile on this trail is totally out. It needs a new bridge. So you can kind of update them. And then when I got back after my 3 days to the office, I would write a trip report, and then it could be updated on the park website. So then visitors coming from all over the world or country could see like, oh, yesterday a ranger hiked it and this is the condition, which is super helpful for people who are coming from across the country and they, maybe it's not super warm where they are yet, but here there's, we're in full bloom summer. So that was really helpful. And I also would take a lot of pictures and of good and bad things, but then we could upload them to the park website so people could actually see updated photos. So over my 8 days, I spent like 4 days in the office and 4 days on day trips or 4 days on overnight trips. And yeah, that's kind of like a day in the life. That was 20 minutes of me rambling. I hope I answered some of your questions. And I'll try and, make this video as helpful as I can. Maybe I'll add some pictures and stuff. But, I hope this was helpful even 5 years later.
So that's a pretty nice blue lake, right? Beautiful mountains, nice blue. And then there's that one. Is that even a real color?